Hi. So I decided that I really wanted to share my testimony. And I've already shared it on Facebook last year. But number one, it was a really hard struggle to try to go back and find it whenever I wanted to rewatch it or show it to other people. So I decided I would re-tape my testimony and put it on YouTube because it'd be easier to find, and the first video of my testimony was at this amazing place called Youth Councils, and it was in front of everybody on the stage, and I just kind of wanted to re-tape my testimony myself, if that makes sense. A lot of you will probably be like, well, what was the point? Just share the other one. But anyways, I just really wanted to do this, so I got saved in 2016. There's always gonna be more than one testimony. You might not have it yet, but I probably have about 50 testimonies. But this is my number one testimony because it's about when I got saved. And I first shared my testimony in March of 2017, but it was about the day I got saved, which was in March of 2016. And considering this is on YouTube, it'll probably be there all the way through 2020, 2030, you know? So, just to clarify that this is about March 2016. My whole life, I struggled with the choice of whether I believed in God or not. I was continuously questioning everything about Him, including His existence. I questioned Him so much that I was like an inch away from completely doubting Him. And that is what I would personally call rock bottom. Growing up was semi-difficult for me. I had to learn how to live a normal, everyday life with anxiety and depression. I was hating myself to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I had completely taken God out of the question. I thought it was a mistake and I had no purpose on this earth whatsoever. But then I started getting signs. The sermons on Sunday mornings were relating to my current predicament spot on. I would flip through the Bible, landing on the most random page I could, and landing on a page that was meant just for me. But, I needed someone else to discuss this with. But I felt horrible and I felt guilty. I needed the answers. I couldn't do it all on my own, but I didn't want anyone knowing I had these questions. I didn't want to admit that I had doubts. But, the signs weren't enough. So I started talking to my corps officer, asking her for advice, asking her how I would know whether God was real or not, where my proof was. I was still depressed. Every time I thought about the idea of God, my mind would stomp on that tiny bit of belief. Every time I thought I was getting another sign, my mind would come up with as many excuses as possible, other than it being God. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was going to give up. but something told me not to. I mean, I had so many people standing 10 toes behind me through this struggle. I had so many people who believed in me. But then there was youth councils in 2016. No matter how hard this is to say, to admit, it needs to be addressed. I didn't go to youth councils for the right reasons. I always went for the wrong reasons. I went to church for the wrong reasons. I came to hang out with my friends, to catch up on gossip, to pass notes during class, you know. I came because it was fun, mainly, not because I wanted to learn about God. I zoned out and I wouldn't pay attention when anyone was speaking about him. I was going down the wrong path, hanging out with the wrong crowds, doing the wrong things outside of church. I was looking for the wrong things outside of church. I was not headed towards a bright future. Honestly, I was heading towards a rebellious and unhealthy and ungodly future. I used to roll my eyes and think everyone was crazy when they talked about him. I thought everyone was making it up. It was silly to believe in someone you couldn't see. I referred to the Bible as just another book in the library. How did everybody know whether the Bible spoke the truth or not? I envied people who could brag about his presence, and I envied people who were genuinely happy because they had God living in their hearts. I didn't understand, what does it feel like? Why couldn't I feel that? What was so wrong with me that God didn't want me to experience him and love him and feel his love and care that everyone else felt? It wasn't fair. I mean, the signs I was getting was so overwhelming. I was getting mad and confused, and I wanted answers to questions that didn't even have answers. I was getting impatient. Why couldn't anyone answer these questions? They'll never go away. Then there was Youth Councils 2016. The whole weekend felt like everything was meant for me. Everything they talked about was directed at me. Everything. That Sunday morning, everyone was listening to the sermon, and it was getting so emotional. God had his hands on everybody's shoulders that morning, telling them it was going to be okay. People were crying, and it was intense. But I had my attention on one thing, and that was his words to me. I was wide-eyed and amazed. That officer was speaking to me. Sitting there listening, taking everything in, that's when I realized the subject of the sermon wasn't aimed at one topic for the entire group. God was speaking to each person in that group individually. My officer came and sat with me, perfect timing and all. And I told her how I was still so confused. I was overthinking again. She asked if she could pray with me. And at that moment, I wanted nothing more. So right there in that seat, she prayed with me. I listened closely to each and every word, interested to know what she felt and what she thought God could do to help. To my astonishment, she thanked him for me. She asked him to clear my head, asked him to put peace on my mind and heart, and she thanked him for me. Before she could finish praying for me, my stomach started going into knots and my heart felt heavy. Next thing I knew, I was crying, and I had no idea why. I was only more confused. So my friend and I went to the bathroom so I could clean up, only to sit back down and start crying again. What was happening? I never cry in front of others, and at that moment I couldn't stop. So I left and I went to the bathroom a second time, this time by myself. I broke down in tears, my hands were shaking, and my legs were trembling. What was happening to me? You know? It was crazy. Before I could even think about it, before I could even comprehend what I was doing, I got down, tear-stained cheeks and trembling hands, and I started praying. I started off asking God why I was crying, asking Him what He was trying to tell me. Then, from my head to my heart to my stomach, I was feeling multiple feelings, from like butterflies to knots to heaviness. Before I knew it myself, I started thanking Him. I thanked Him for everything, still shaking. I could barely breathe, but with the little bits of breath that I could manage, I used to thank Him. Then all of a sudden, I felt weight lifting off of me. The butterflies were gone. My head was no longer pounding, and my shaking settled down. I felt weightless, like I could fly, like I could float. Okay, what just happened? My mind started running 100 miles per hour again, trying to figure out what just happened. 1,000 different ideas other than it being God. That's when I told myself, I was like, Destiny, stop. That was God. That was His big, powerful proof of existence that you've been begging for. If you tell yourself anything other than that, that's the devil messing with you. You have your proof. Take it and stop denying it. He was there all along. The entire time He was there. You just needed to open your eyes and open your heart and let Him in. He wasn't avoiding you. You were avoiding Him. All the signs were Him saying, here. Let Him in your life and accept Him. Stop pushing Him away. I accepted God in my life, March 6th, 2016. And I would be lying to you if I told you that it's been easy since that day. Life is always going to be hard. I still get depressed. I just need to have a little more control and not push God or anyone else for that matter away. When life brings me down, life is going to get rough, but you need to give all your problems and all your worries and doubts and give them to God. Let Him carry the weight off your shoulders and stop trying to carry it all and deal with it all on your own. Let go of your independence for a little while and admit that you can't do it all on your own. Admit you need God to carry you through the next obstacle sometimes. Whatever problems you'll face or are facing, He already knows. Let Him in. He's just waiting for you to accept Him. He never left you, so don't leave Him. And that's my testimony that I shared in 2017. I just decided that I really wanted to share it with others, people who weren't there to see it, people who aren't my friends on Facebook and can't see it, and also just so that I can be able to go back and find it, because I can't find anything. But I'll try to post more, but that's my testimony.